Welcome to the Bryce Eddy Show. So today my guest is Bradley from the Freedom People. You know, he was one of the early adopters of understanding that they were lying to us. And, you know, people weren't listening until recently, of course. You know, a lot of people's eyes have been open. So we're going to talk to Bradley about, how he came about with all of this, why he was ahead of the curve, and we're going to have fun. Bradley, welcome.
Thank you, Bryce. It's an honor, man. This is really cool. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to have you on because I had a similar experience where I early on was listening to people who were kind of in the know, right? And the Paul Reveres of our time, the people that are saying that they're lying to us. I think it was very observable if you were paying attention. And of course, all the friends and family and people around me are like, okay, all right, calm down. And then and then of course 2020 hits, they shut down the world. People are like, wait, this doesn't make sense. I mean, unless you're a complete moron or you got just pulled into this kind of brainwashing thing, if you had any bit of independent thought, you started to look around and go, all right, hold up. And all these people we trusted before, all these institutions that we thought like, hey, they're smart people, they generally know what they're doing. You realize that it's all a complete sham. We're being fleeced of our cash, and people are trying to take over the world, and it's not us. So what's up? Right?
Yeah, man. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So give me your stories. I know you said you're ex-military, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you kind of initially saw, and let's go from there, brother.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I was in the military. I was in the Marines. I joined when I was a kid. I was 16 when I joined, and then I left just after my 18th birthday. I went to that little early program thing, but I don't know. Just my life. I was always a little bit kind of older, whatever. I just in some ways, other ways definitely not, but in some ways, I went to work when I was a kid. I grew up on a ranch, and so
Right.
I just learned working was part of life, right? And so by the time I was like 14, 15 years old, I was a pretty skilled carpenter, right? I could make a living at it, and anyway, I didn't like school very much. And so I went to work. And then after a couple of years working, I was like, I don't want to end up in this town. It's a little small town in Arizona. And so I wanted to leave. So anyway, went to the Marines, and whatever reason, I don't know what it is, or because that was interesting. The way you put it is kind of, why did I wake up quicker? I have no idea. I don't know why it happened to me. Now that I even try and think about why, I don't know. I have those questions a lot in my life. I've got a lot of messed up family members, and I used to beat myself up like, why am I not all messed up like them? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of that question is, what is source? What is God, flowing through us and directing us in places? I don't know. That's a great question. Not surely
Yeah.
why it happened, but it happened.
Well, I mean, in just based on what you said there, you're a serious person, right? So if you're a kid and you're kind of like, all right, I got to get something going in my life, or if you're directed towards something, some goal, some like, all right, I got to get out of my own way, whether you're successful about it or not initially. If you're of that mind or of that personality, I think you tend to be looking at things a little bit differently,
Mhm.
observing around. I mean, that's the common denominator of a lot of people. you know um I mean, I'm sure you've heard the term NPC, non-player
Yeah.
character, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people go through life that way, and I believe, I'm a Christian boy, right? We all have souls, but there are people that seem to just be like, caught up in the stream of life, but not paying attention to anything or not taking anything at a deeper or more serious level, not observing things, not thinking about things. There's that, right?
Mm.
And so it sounds like you were probably one of those kids that were just, paying a little bit of attention, and I think that's the difference between the people that also get completely, sucked into some establishment narrative and, get carried along with the deception. So, I mean, that's just been my kind
Oh.
of recent observation of people.
Well, Operation Mockingbird, man, I have a lot of theories around like it. I do believe it's mass brainwashing.
Yeah, that what do they call
through the
the,
boob tube.
mass psychoses?
Yeah, man. And that's the thing, right? These NPCs, I, well, I mean, there can be lots of theories, but I think that one of the main contributing factors could be the the CIA stuff that they were doing. I mean, this stuff is all declassified now, right? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
even, so
Yeah,
we're
talk
not
set it
even,
up. I mean, we've talked about it, on the show in the past, but set it up.
but yeah, so but this is right. It's the CIA kind of like operation and using TV, and I mean, CIA's been in Hollywood. They have offices in Hollywood. This is not like a conspiracy theory anymore, right? This is again, it's been
Right,
declassified. So they say that they took it down, right? Just like DARPA said they took down their social network. It just so happens the same day Facebook starts, right? I mean, there's just so many things. Once you really do start to pull on one thread, and that's really what it is, right? It's the curious mindset, right? And that's what the freedom people, that's our big thing, is that um, we want to enable and foster that sort of behavior, right? And really it just comes to, also on it is extreme ownership, extreme ownership of yourself. Like no matter what your life circumstances is, if you say no, it's my fault, it's my doing, or it's, whether the fault is good or bad, if it's my doing, then now I can control it, now I can actually change it. Whereas we have this our course, it's called the 5 pillars of freedom transformation course, and really it's around these 5 pillars: health, wealth, education, spirituality, and law, right? And taking back your power. Those are the areas in our lives, and this happens over generations, right? It didn't just happen like today or yesterday or in the past 5 years, right? It wasn't didn't COVID didn't just happen, and and all this stuff just happened in the past 4 or 5 years. This stuff has been going on for a very, very, very long time, right? And so over generations, we've gotten, we're a nanny state, man. Everything. We can't do anything ourselves, right? So if my health is bad, whose fault is it? It's the doctor's fault, not my fault, right? If I'm uneducated or my kids are uneducated, whose fault is it? Oh, it's the teacher's fault, it's the school's fault, right? And this is where we really get into problems. This is where we get into a place of also, and this is what, again, back to what we were saying, is the Operation Mockingbird, where there's mind control on TV. So if you don't have that responsibility enough to even step away from the TV, because it's not the TV's not bad, just like guns aren't bad, right? That
right.
it's inherently, it's a tool, right? I can kill somebody with a knife and I can make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? And so what do we do? As Joe Rogan put it once, what do we do? Nerf the world? So anyway, that's really about taking that ownership. But this all of it together, I think, is kind of why we have so many NPCs and so many people that are just completely um, brainwashed, indoctrinated. It's like it's a good portion of the population. I don't even want to say the majority, because the more and more people that I meet, like you and the people in our community, it's hard for me to believe that they're majority, man. I just think that they have the airwaves. They've got all the airwaves, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
changing because of podcasts, but they kind
Yeah,
of
I mean,
got, prime time.
yeah, they've controlled the institutions, right? So and including the churches. They've largely controlled the churches, which is disgusting to me, of the highest order, but they've largely controlled all of the things that are telling us what we should be doing, right? All the
Mhm.
institutions, the schools, the media, all that stuff. This is what you need to think. And then, of course, gearing even public education towards sit down, shut up, this is what you need to think,
Mm.
versus teaching us to think for ourselves, teaching us the tools of thinking, of examining the world, observing the world, all those sort of things. And so here we are, and you're right, the Operation Mockingbird and other things they did with our TV programming,
Mm.
right? There's a reason it's called
Programming,
programming, or tell a
a
vision.
vision. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of those sort of things. You're right. Entertainment can be wonderful. TV can be wonderful. There's all kinds of, great things that you can take away and enjoy from that. But we are not doing the things we need to do to, carve out and make sure we're going
Mm.
our own way and not the way that they want us to go. And you're right. It's for purposes of control. I'm convinced that they want to make us returning to feudalism, global
Mhm.
feudalism, kind of an idea, versus having us all independent. That's why they're working so hard to destroy the family and the republic. And here we are. So
Amen.
let's talk about your program and what you're doing with the freedom people and what that means. And I'm excited because there's so many entrepreneurs out there that are doing unique things to try to pull us back from the edge and create a better class of humans. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Happy to. Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's what I was saying is I have um, more hope and belief that we're gonna actually we might actually pull through it, man. Like we might be able to turn this ship a little bit, right? And it's again, it, and because if you rely on what's public, what you're viewing through a TV or through the media, right? The legacy media, uh, they're going to keep you locked in fear. They're going to keep you completely um, disillusioned from what's real, right? They keep you from talking to your neighbor, right? Out of fear of probably won't agree with them, right? I'm probably not going to agree with that guy, and then we're going to end up in a fight. Now I got to live next to this guy, right? I mean, so many different things. But that's really one of the main focus of the freedom people right now is we kind of realize that if we're going to have a real chance at this, we have to change the individual. It's about the individual, and the individual learning to be a strong, free, independent man or woman, and the tools in the community to support that. Right? We're a solutions based organization. We help people set up private trusts, tax exempt entities. We help people set up unincorporated associations, PMAs, things like that. Anything to keep them out of the public, or yeah, out of the public, and bring you into the private if you want to live that way, because there is a way to live free. There actually is within the system.
Yeah.
So we have those solutions, but our big one right now is really these courses and trying to help change the individual, because if we can change the individual, then we can change the family, change the community, change the county, change the state, and then maybe even, have a fighting chance at this. But you're not going to vote this in, and we're not going to vote it out. That's my belief. I don't believe that anybody's coming to save us. And that's
Great.
kind of the TV, what it does too, right? Is it, and the media and the two-party system and this constant red team, blue team thing, that somehow we're all just black or white, right? Or red or blue, or whatever you want to say, right? It's way more diverse. We are way more diverse of a people than that, right? And so this whole thing and keeping us gridlocked constantly, right, at each other, and just it I believe that that's put in place to continue the cycle. It's just going to continue, right? If you've been old enough or alive long enough, then you'll know, or at least maybe you've seen the pattern that regardless of who's in, the people always kind of get juiced, whether it's out of
Yeah.
more freedoms or it's more policy, more regulation, whatever it is. We always seem to get juiced, right?
Yeah, no, that's observable. And we've seen that, year over year. I mean, that's why Donald Trump frankly terrified them so much, is
Mm.
because Donald Trump was kind of saying, yeah, they've been ripping you off, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what party. And he was kind of, bashing aspects of all of that, the whole talking points of the deep state, and all
Yep.
those sort of things, permanent Washington that everybody's been talking about. It's terrified them, which is why they went so hardcore on all the lawfare and all the attacks and everything against him.
Recent
uh,
assassination attempts.
yeah, assassination attempts, all that. I mean, look, clearly he's not our messiah. He isn't going to come to save us, but he started to reveal the game a little bit and started to shine a spotlight on the fact that, hey, this is what they've been doing. And all of those people just went nuts in, like, we cannot have this guy ruin our
Yeah,
thing here.
yeah, they
Did
went
you I
bonkers.
you mentioned Joe Rogan earlier. Have you listened to the pod?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we watched it yesterday. It was it. To have somebody sit there for 3 hours and talk like that, man, like it's hard to deny, right?
Yeah,
It's
both he and JD Vance, I mean, he went on Theo Vaughn.
yeah, yeah.
He went on Dave was Schultz. He went on a
Mhm.
whole bunch of podcasts and did these long form conversational style talks. And Joe's masterful at it, and I think Joe got out of him things that others did not. But each one of them, revealed kind of more of who he is. each one of them, have had, just millions of views. The Kamala Harris "Call Me Daddy" one, which they were like, "Oh, look at this! It's 600,000 downloads. Wow, look at the Kamala Harris." It was a terrible interview. She's very flat, very unlikable, can't really flow in conversation. She's not comfortable in her own skin. She doesn't have a bunch of original thoughts. So, you know, uh, you know, and she's just not tried and true, in that kind of environment. Just, she's been a B player for so long. Again, she was a DEI style, like, we
Mm.
need a black woman, let's do this, right? She, if she had to go through any kind of contest, any kind of primary, she would not have made it. I mean, anybody she went up against, she would have failed, I believe. And
Oh yeah.
so, here's Donald Trump, walking in and doing this 3 hours with Joe Rogan, where he pressed him on some things. And you saw where, I don't know if you remember the moment where he talks about, like, what he's going to do to end some of these wars. And
Mm.
Joe's like, okay, so what are you going to say? And all that stuff. He goes, look, I'm not going to, just to make myself look smart with the 5 people, that are going to think I'm smart on this. He goes, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to say, but just trust me. I've got a plan. Right.
Right.
And I think that that's true. I mean, you're not going to show your cards on TV. I'm going to tell Putin this, or I'm
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to say
yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Um, he pressed him on, aliens and JFK and,
Yeah, and he's like, "Yep."
the
He's
things
like,
that Joe's interested in, which I like, right?
yeah, me too.
And he wasn't, afraid to, talk about things. He said the certain things that, look, I'm going to leave it at that, right?
Mhm.
He doesn't need to reveal all of his cards, but he did a good job. Kamala could not have done 20 minutes with Joe Rogan without coming off
Absolutely not.
horrible.
Well, and I'd like to know, was there, I mean, has it, that's unprecedented, right? I mean, a 3-hour long form interview with a presidential nom who what has that
Outside of
ever happened ever?
outside of Donald Trump and this era that we are in, there has never been anything like that. I mean, podcasts didn't exist years ago, right?
Sure.
All you had was soundbite, and debates and quick little speeches and teleprompters and prepared everything. And, even with Reagan and all that, great speech writers, you never had a politician just free flowing in any format
For
prior,
3 hours, man. That's what I'm
prior to this.
saying. Yeah,
That's right.
that's pretty badass. That's really, really cool, man. I think and that's what I'm saying. We're in a completely different
There are no
this
rules like there used to be rules. I mean,
yeah.
and the Democrats created it when they upended certain things over the years, and
Mhm.
they, started violating just good American tradition. Like, you don't go after previous presidents. You don't do certain things. Peaceful transfer of power, we move forward. But again, part of that was they were all in lockstep. They
Yeah.
knew that they were gonna, fleece us all. They knew that they were gonna play the game. They're gonna come in and out of power, but all the while, all sides are gonna get rich.
Mhm. Yep.
And the game was revealed, and now the world is freaking out.
Oh, yeah, and you can see the systemic problem with all of it too. I mean, and Joe Rogan, they talked about it in that interview, was even the rates and the Fed, right? You can see how the Democrat comes in and immediately rates go to zero, right? And so you can see that they're pushing this ideology because that's really what has become, right? Because I mean, when I was younger, when I first went in the Marines, I was known as a Democrat because I didn't care what people did with their personal life. You know what I mean?
Right.
I
Yeah.
really didn't care. But I'm 100% into freedom and personal liberties and like do not tell me what to do. And all of a sudden here we are and it's like what has happened? You know what I mean? And that's again the education or the indoctrination. It's not in education. We have indoctrination camps
Yep.
and the pharmaceuticals, right? I mean, look who writes the pharmacy or the what's it called when you the curriculum
Prescription.
for the
Oh,
doctors, right? Big pharma, right?
yeah.
And so we're in such it, the disillusion that we've, and that's why I call it the Matrix. I think that that is more of a documentary than anything. I think it's
Sure.
the foreshadowing to show us what Because I mean, once you really know how it works and how they actually suck the life out of us through the dead entities that they create, like batteries, it's yeah, it's what eye awakening, and it can be very jarring. And that's why, like, on our website, like, all the videos that we created are animated. So we've kept it very light, and we've created animated videos, a bunch of them, to kind of try and help um communicate this information. Because, like I was saying, I know what it was like trying to pass on information that can alter someone's perception of reality, and it can be very jarring, and it can hurt people. So that's why we want to be more of the beacon of light, just kind of here, and to meet you where you're at, wherever that may be. And that's why, back to the 5 pillars of freedom, that's why we started that, was to widen our net and kind of talk to more people that maybe, hey, your birth certificate is a blah, and all this stuff, like crazy stuff, right? To a lot of people, let's not maybe start there. Let's start more with, hey, do you know that you can actually take control of your life in more ways than you know, right? And just once that, then I think then if you can get that curiosity muscle going, right?
Mhm.
And then the thirst for knowledge and information, the excitement to know more and learn more, right? Then I think that that's when we really have a chance to kind of turn things around, because then the individual, they'll do it themselves. They'll be so excited to learn, right? Like, that's the gift I was given, with not even I have a broken home family where I came from and stuff, but that was one of the biggest gifts I was ever given, because I was forced to learn on my own. But that's the biggest gift you can give anybody. Love
Yeah.
to learn. Just the
Oh,
love
yeah.
love of learning. Yeah.
Intellectual curiosity, a desire to read, to learn, whatever is the greatest gift you can give a kid, or, shoot, you can come to that late in life as well. You can wake
Yeah.
up. Well, let's so first, let's talk about what's the website, where do we find the content, and then I want you to tease a couple of these concepts out a little bit more. So where do we
Yeah,
go?
absolutely. So yeah, thefreedompeople.org, and that's thefreedompeople.org. That's our website. Um, and then, as far as like concepts, I mean, it really, where you want to
Well,
go,
you said,
Bryce,
yeah,
you
well,
let me
okay,
know.
so you said the 5 pillars of freedom. So let's hit a couple of those, and let's
Sure, sure. So you actually, so what we were talking about: health, wealth, education, spirituality, and law. But let's take spirituality. You mentioned Christianity, right? So what we're saying is, when you take over power or take back control of your connection with God, that's what I'm saying. And the reason being is because, as you mentioned, the churches were taken over long
Yep.
ago. They it's And when you want to talk about taxation, that's the 501c3. You hear it all the time: 501c3, 501c3. Well, if you know and you read the 501c3 tax code, right, that was started by Lyndon B. Johnson, right? So, but that actually is, if you become a 501c3, it is now illegal, right? Illegal. And what that means is, through their contract, you cannot talk bad about the government in your church.
Right.
If you do, then you're going to owe back tax for all those years they gave you tax exemption, right? So anyway, so that's, the churches were taken over long, long ago, and they've been just and I of course can't say all of them, but just many of them. And that's why we have to, even there, yes, even there, you have to question your preacher. You got to question the priest. You got to question the guy who's sitting there in front of you. You know what I mean? Because if not, next thing you know, they're out touching little boy, all this stuff that, I mean, what was going on with, how did the Catholic Church survive that? You know what I mean? Like, that shows you how big and powerful these entities are, right? And so that's what we want by what I mean by the 5 pillars of freedom is we want you to, yes, question everything, everything. If it doesn't come from inside your soul and inside your heart, the God in you, right? Then we should be questioning those things, and question, like, your crazy voice in your head too. I'm not saying don't question that. You got to learn discernment, of course,
Sure.
between the crazy mind and the heart, right? There is discernment there, but that
Amen.
comes from taking ownership. Like, I've been my entire life, I've been my own doctor. I've been my own everything, because I don't trust any of it. I was raised homeopathic, so I don't trust pharmaceuticals at all. Never
Yeah.
have. So And once you're there, I mean, what does that do for your life? Well, now it makes you resourceful. And look, man, we have the internet now. Holy moly. Like the internet, you can learn anything that you want immediately at your fingertips, right? We were doing this before the internet existed, right? I had to learn stuff before the internet. Like now and that's the thing is just like everything, right? The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. There's two sides to every coin, right? You can't give something up with it. So, there's always that, and that's where discernment comes in. But I really truly believe that, and that's because I've met other people that have lived the life I have, and they come to the same conclusion. We all come to the same conclusion, right? And so that must mean that whatever's power in our souls has a unified message. And if you're quiet and loving enough and patient enough, you'll come to that same conclusion. It's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. So, are you excited? I talk about health a fair amount, on the show some, but in my personal life with others, and we've been being ridiculously poisoned for so many years, and unfortunately, at the hands of believers and Christians and people that should know better, have put poison into our food and allowed it to go on for profits. And we've never been sicker, we've never been fatter,
Mm.
we've never been more brain dead as a result of all this stuff. Testosterone in men has never been lower. Are you excited about it bubbling up now in conversation more, and
Yeah.
seeing what's happening with Donald Trump talking openly about it on the show, with having Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Going out there and being part of making America healthy again. Are
Yeah.
you thrilled about that? Because I am.
Oh, beyond, brother. Beyond, man. I did you see the Tucker interview? And they went on Joe Rogan as well, Casey and the brother.
Yeah,
And
Kelly
man,
me. Yeah,
that gave me I was filled with so much joy from that podcast, right? Just to see institutionalists, so to speak, waking up, right? I mean, and the way that like Tucker was asking him, like, why don't you, why these are smart people? Why aren't well, so here it is, man. Okay. Doctors learn zero about nutrition.
yep,
Why? Why? Why are they only taught one side of the coin? They're taught the physiological thing and how they can do it with chemicals, how they can do
yeah,
anything. They're only taught that. Why is that? Because it's advantageous to a system that's been put in place.
yeah. Healthy people don't make them money. I mean, it's
We got to be or dead,
yeah,
right? And so we got to keep you in the middle, sick and constantly wanting more pills, right? And on the pill train,
yeah,
right? And so we can apply that. So let's move to the law pillar. We can apply that to law, right? And bar attorneys, and they're only taught one side of the coin. They're only taught legalese. They're only taught law. Now, let's take both of those. At least my entire life growing up, I was always, it was through the airwaves. It was in our country music. It was everything, grow up to be don't grow up to be a cowboy, right? Be a doctor or a lawyer, right? That's what
yeah,
it's through it's part of our culture. Like if you're a doctor or a lawyer, and then on top of that, if you went to Harvard or you went to Yale or you went to one of these big Ivy League indoctrination camps, well, nobody can tell you anything. So that but then you're constantly being reinforced by the system, constantly, right? And with the lawyers, constantly, the courts are constantly reaffirming all this. Your doctors, the hospitals, everything, reaffirm. So then how can we ever expect, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what they were saying during that interview. It's like, well, you know what I mean? How can you? And I can imagine how hard it would be. That's why I'm so lucky with how my life was going through, is that I'd always questioned everything, and including everything in myself, everything everywhere, right? I was just given that mind, and most people don't have that. And again, if I would have went and become a doctor, I probably wouldn't either, right? I can't say, I don't know. But what I could tell you is that that's, to me, why we are in that, right? And that's why you can see why we teach private law, right? We're lawyers. We're not attorneys. We're lawyers, right? And if you know the actual definition of a lawyer, that's Black Law Dictionary right there. But if you know the definition of lawyer, it's anybody who's learned in the law. right? The
Mhm.
actual definition, not Webster's definition, not the definition that they use to keep you in the mist and in the fog, right? There's actual stuff going on that is, and there's remedies. And that's where the freedom people really kind of came to be, is because I've been doing this for so long. There's remedies, and we know that there's remedies, and we can help people with remedies that are ready for the remedies. But again, before 2020, not a lot of people were, they didn't care, right? They didn't know they were in a cage. And even if they did, and you come to realize it's comfortable, there's such the illusion of freedom that, and it is an illusion. It's an illusion. And that's when you know how it works, right? America, the
Yeah.
freest place. We're not. You can't
No,
drink a
no,
beer
it's
in the
been
street.
yeah, I mean, it's been a, semblance of liberty that
Mhm.
until 2020, I think most people thought we were free, thought we were living in a free country, and realized that, "Oh, no, we have this illusion of it."
Mhm.
And once you go outside of the bounds, oh, you start to realize that, "Oh, no, we're in this cage, we can't go any further outside of this."
Yeah.
And you see it, and when they were doing things, I mean, they violated almost every single part of our Constitution has been under assault over the last several years. Every single thing you can look at, I can provide an example where it was just stepped right on, walked right over, and everybody just went, "Oh, okay." Most people didn't even know that they were violating our rights, and so here we are. Let's hit a couple of the things. I know you threw them out really quickly earlier,
Sure.
but what are the things, or tease some of them that get us outside of their control or set us up to be not true slaves to the state
Mm.
anymore?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the first thing is the realization, or we need to know the difference between public and private. And there's lots of examples that we can use. One really good one is the sheriff versus the police.
Yeah.
Why do we have sheriff and police? Why are there two? Why don't we just have all police or all sheriff? Well, the police, it's in their name. They are actually policy enforcers, and that's what they're police, the city, or the city of, right? Your state troopers, all these, they're part of the corporation that is the United States Incorporated.
Hmm.
There's proof of that if you go on Dun and Bradstreet. As a matter of fact, we pin all of these in our Telegram channel. But if you go to Dun and Bradstreet, you can look up the United States Incorporated, and you can see that the key principle is still Joseph R. Biden, by the way. But you can see it's right kind of in our face. And if you don't know what Dun and Bradstreet is, that's credit reporting agency for businesses. And in order to publish an app on the Apple App Store, you have to have a Dun and Bradstreet number, right? So you can kind of see the connection there. And there is proof that these are indeed corporations. That is the main corporation. And then we have franchise corporations known as the states. So you have the state of Michigan, the state of Arizona, the state of California is different from California state. California state is the land. Okay. So that's the difference. That's the public and the private. The public boundaries, they create these boundaries. Borders are invincible lines that are actually just kind of managed, regulated by these public entities, which they are corporations. They're dead entities, and they can't produce actually anything on their own, right? A bank needs an original depositor. What's an original depositor? At the beginning, it has to be a living soul, right? There has to be somebody who is able to produce and move and do something to produce anything of value, right? A bank can't even really print money without leveraging a soul, and or leveraging your energy source, right? Some people get hung up the word soul, and I get that, but that's the source that powers your body. They use that, and they tax that, right? And taxation through force is theft. That's not, it's not tax, that's theft, right? So if you don't pay what they think you should pay, even though they're going to send that money to Ukraine or for sex operations on our kids or whatever, that doesn't matter. It's of no concern to you. You have to pay them what they say, right?
Hmm.
So that's why taxation is theft. Taxation through force is theft. So we help people with these different entities kind of step outside of that. So you don't actually have to be regulated. So when you go and you get your LLC, you become incorporated. Incorporated to what? Incorporated to that franchise state, because you go to the state. You don't go to the Fed to start a business. You can't, right? Why? Because government's power is inside out, just like you. So we actually have, as an individual, as the people, we have the most power. Then next comes the county court, then the state, then Fed. And we know that through cannabis laws. We know that through multiple different evidences out there, but that's really kind of what it is. So when you go get incorporated, I go set up an LLC, let's say in California. Well, what I'm doing is I'm going to that franchise corporation of the that is of the United States Inc. And I'm asking them for their permission to please be taxed and regulated. That's
Mhm.
what a license is. That's what you're doing. You're asking them to please regulate and tax you. Now, before all this came into play, long before, there's always been business. There was business way before all these entities, way before the IRS, way before any of this. There was businesses that operated, and we did that in a private way, right? And that still exists, and it's still there. It's just because for so long we've been lopsided with the legalese and not enough lawful people and information to keep a balance, a healthy balance, I believe, of public and private, because there are sometimes there's reasons to use public entities, and you can use those. And that's why we set up trust and trust that own all the different entities, because then we can play both sides of the coin. We can play the whole thing, right? We can see. And that's where, when we talk about the Wu Wei, or living a balanced life, it's living in the middle so that you can see both sides. That's what we're talking about. And you can play both sides, which they do, but
Right.
we don't, because again, through school, which we know they're indoctrination camps, it's all about obedience, and obedience is not a virtue, by the way, but it's all about obedience. And that's it, is do not question. If you question, you got to raise your hand and ask to go to the bathroom. I mean, all this stuff as a kid, right? And so that's all we're doing, is just creating conformists,
Mhm.
right? We're not actually, and so they all become lawyers and doctors. And so now we're super sick and we're getting raped of all of our wealth and pillaged. And I mean,
That's
if you
right.
really
Yeah.
knew what was going on, we'd be
Oh, yeah.
very, very upset.
Yeah, well, I love that you're out there educating us, brother. So,
Thanks,
Bradley,
man.
how do we reach you again? How do we follow you? Make sure
Yeah.
that we have all that. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks, Bryce. I appreciate it, man. Yeah. Thefreedompeople.org is the website. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. We're the Freedom People everywhere, pretty much, just the Freedom People.
All
Uh,
right.
yeah, we'd love to hear from all of you. Thank you, Bryce. This has been
Yeah.
awesome, man. Thanks
No,
for your time.
fantastic. I appreciate you coming on, and yeah, definitely I'll check it out and follow you, and we'll link to this, and we'll do some collabs. So anyway,
Awesome.
I appreciate you,
I love
brother.
it.
Thanks for coming on. To God be the glory, and we are out. Hey, thank you for watching or listening to this show. If you are someone who listens to us on the podcast apps, please go to our Rumble channel. Even if you're not going to watch us there, we'd appreciate you hitting subscribe. We want to boost those numbers up and make sure that that channel continues to grow. But again, thank you so much for listening to us.